Marcus's palm connected with Claire's face before the tray she was holding even hit the ground. For 1 full second, the entire backyard froze. The paper plates stopped midair. The grill kept hissing behind them. Lemonade pooled across the patio stones, soaking into Claire's shoes. Marcus stepped in closer, jaw clenched tight. "Don't you ever touch me again." Claire pressed a hand to her cheek. "I didn't." "Clean this up," he snapped, gesturing at the spilled drinks, "and get out." Everyone had witnessed it, her cousins, her aunt, her sister, but not one person moved. Then Renata walked over, not to check on Claire's face, not to ask what had happened, but to plant herself beside Marcus as though he were the injured party. "Apologize to him," Renata said. Claire stared at her. "Renata, he hit me." Renata's expression hardened. "Apologize or leave." Claire glanced around the backyard she'd spent that entire morning setting up, the folding tables, the trays of food, the decorations she'd bought because Renata had said money was tight again. Her throat tightened, but her voice held steady. "No." A few people looked away. Someone quietly reached for a fallen cup. Marcus let out a short, satisfied laugh, as if her refusal only confirmed something. Renata stepped aside and pointed toward the gate. "Then leave." Claire crossed the yard, her cheeks stinging, her hands trembling. Behind her, Marcus muttered something about her always playing the victim. Nobody came after her. At her car, she fumbled with her keys as her phone buzzed once in her pocket, a notification lighting up the screen. Whitfield and Cole Estate Attorneys. Urgent call requested. She barely registered it through the tears she refused to let fall. Back in the yard, the party slowly resumed. Chairs scraped against the patio. Someone forced out a laugh. Marcus's voice rose above the rest, calm again, confident again. Claire sat behind the wheel, staring at the house where her own sister had just chosen a man's ego over her bleeding cheek, with no idea that within hours, Marcus and Renata would come home to find something waiting on their doorstep that would make everyone at that barbecue regret their silence. Claire drove home without the radio on. The quiet inside the car felt almost louder than the slap itself. At every red light, she caught the faint red mark on her cheek reflected in the rearview. She touched it once, then pulled her hand away quickly. "I didn't even do anything," she murmured to herself. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time. By the time she reached her townhouse, the anger had settled into something heavier, pure exhaustion. She stepped inside, set her keys on the counter, and leaned there for a moment. Her gaze landed on a framed photo beside the coffee maker, her, Renata, and their grandfather, smiling in his garden years back. Renata used to sling an arm around her shoulders and call her, "my favorite little sister." Claire smiled sadly. So much for that. She dropped into a chair, and the memories came flooding in, whether she wanted them or not. When Renata went back to work after her first child was born, Claire had watched the baby almost every afternoon for nearly a year. "I don't know what we'd do without you," Renata used to say constantly. Claire never took a dime for it. She just loved the time with her niece. Later, when Marcus was out of work for months on, Claire quietly covered 2 overdue utility bills after Renata called her in tears. "Nobody can know about this," Renata had pleaded. "They won't," Claire had promised, and she never brought it up again. Then there were the birthdays, the Christmas dinners, the family reunions. If something needed decorating, Claire showed up early. If someone forgot dessert, she drove across town to grab one. If Grandpa needed a ride to the doctor, she canceled her own plans without second thought. She'd become the one everyone leaned on, and somehow the easiest one to overlook. Marcus's cruelty hadn't started at that barbecue. It went back years. Small comments, little cuts dressed up as jokes. Still single? You work too hard, always trying too much. Whenever Claire spoke up at family dinners, Marcus had a way of talking over her. Renata usually laughed it off. "Oh, that's just Marcus." If Claire looked uncomfortable, Renata would just shrug. "You know how he gets." Over time, everyone else fell into the same pattern. Marcus's disrespect became routine, not because it was okay, but because nobody wanted the confrontation. Claire remembered another gathering, almost a year before, when she'd accidentally parked in Marcus's usual spot by the driveway. He'd walked in carrying his cooler and announced loudly, "Guess some people still don't understand basic manners." Everyone laughed. Claire quietly moved her car. Not a single person told him he was out of line. She'd convinced herself that keeping the peace was worth swallowing her pride. Today proved just how wrong that had been. Her phone buzzed a third time. This time she answered. One new voicemail. She hit play. "Good afternoon, Ms. Bennett. This is Michael Whitfield from Whitfield & Cole Estate Attorneys. Please return my call as soon as you are able regarding the occupancy agreement tied to your grandfather's estate. This needs your immediate attention." The message ended. Claire frowned. She'd been hoping to avoid dealing with any of that today of all days. She rubbed her forehead and stared at her phone for nearly a full minute. Family conflict was the last thing she wanted to deal with. But something in her had shifted, not just because of the slap, but because her own sister had looked her in the eye and chosen humiliation over the truth. Claire finally pressed call. The attorney picked up almost instantly. "Ms. Bennett, thank you for calling back. I got your voicemail. I'm sorry it's landing at such a hard time." A brief pause. "Has something happened?" Claire exhaled slowly. "Yes. I see," he said, his tone growing more careful. "As I explained when your grandfather's estate was settled, the occupancy agreement protecting your sister and her husband came with certain conditions. I remember. One of those conditions specifically covered harassment, intimidation, or abusive behavior directed at you." Claire closed her eyes. "I remember that too. If those conditions were broken, you're under no obligation to let them continue living on the property." She said nothing. The attorney didn't push. Finally, Claire asked the only question that mattered. "If I decide today, can this all be handled legally?" Without hesitation, he answered, "Yes." Another long pause. Claire looked once more at the fading mark on her cheek. Then she said, "Please move forward." The attorney answered quietly, "I'll begin immediately." The call ended. Claire slowly set her phone down. For the first time all day, she wasn't running from the conflict anymore. She'd made a decision, one that could never be undone. Back at the barbecue, someone flipped the burgers on the grill. Children kept chasing each other across the lawn as if nothing had happened. Only the adults seemed uneasy. Marcus stood near the cooler with a soda in hand, laughing loudly. "I'm telling you," he said, shaking his head, "she's always been dramatic. She barely brushed against me and acted like I was the problem." A couple of cousins traded uncomfortable glances but said nothing. Marcus kept going. "Some people need to learn boundaries. She brought this on herself." Renata nodded beside him. "Exactly. She could have just apologized, but she's too stubborn." An awkward silence settled over the group. Finally, Aunt Carol crossed her arms. "Marcus," she said carefully, "I saw what happened." He looked at her. "So did everyone else. You hit her." Marcus shrugged. "And?" Carol frowned. She'd been carrying drinks when someone bumped into her. Marcus scoffed. "You didn't see it from my angle." "I saw enough." Renata cut in before Carol could continue. "My husband doesn't owe anyone an explanation." Carol looked her niece dead in the eye. "Your sister walked out of here with a handprint on her face." Renata crossed her arms. "And she could have avoided all of it by apologizing." Several relatives looked away, unwilling to start another argument. Marcus smiled, satisfied. "See? Even Renata gets it." Across the yard, whispers began spreading quietly. "I've never seen him hit anyone before. That wasn't self-defense. Claire didn't deserve that." A few family members discreetly reached for their phones. One cousin texted Claire, "Are you okay?" Another wrote, "I'm sorry nobody stopped him." An older uncle murmured to his wife, "We should have said something." She nodded, "We should have." For the first time that afternoon, Marcus noticed the shift in the air. People weren't laughing with him anymore. They were simply waiting for the barbecue to end. An hour later, guests began gathering their things. Goodbyes were polite but stripped of the usual warmth. "What's everybody so quiet about?" Marcus asked. Nobody answered. Renata forced a smile. "They're just tired." He believed her. Loading coolers into the SUV, he smirked. "I guarantee Claire calls tomorrow pretending none of this happened." Renata sighed. "She always comes around." "Exactly." He slammed the tailgate shut. and climbed in, convinced the day had ended exactly as Marcus wanted. 20 minutes later, Marcus turned onto their street and slowed the SUV. "What's going on?" Renata leaned forward. A white sedan sat parked in front of their house, another unfamiliar car behind it. 3 people stood near the front walkway. A man in a tailored navy suit holding a leather briefcase, a uniformed locksmith with a toolbox at his feet, and a legal courier holding a large sealed envelope. Renata frowned. "Are they at the wrong house?" Marcus laughed. "They must be." He parked in the driveway and stepped out, all confidence. "Can I help you?"
The suited man smiled politely and produced a business card. "Good afternoon. My name is Michael Whitfield." He paused. "I'm an attorney representing the owner of this property." Marcus frowned. "The owner?" "Yes." Renata looked confused. There has to be some mistake. The attorney glanced between them. "Before we proceed, may I confirm your identities?" Marcus folded his arms. "I'm Marcus Bell, and this is Renata Bell." The attorney nodded once. "Thank you." He took the sealed envelope from the courier and handed it to Marcus. Marcus looked down, and his expression shifted instantly. Claire's name printed prominently across the first page. His confident smile faded. "What is this?" The attorney held his gaze, voice even. "Before you go inside, you'll want to read page 1. Marcus tore the envelope open impatiently. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "Some kind of clerical error." Renata stepped closer, trying to read over his shoulder. The attorney said nothing, simply waited. The first page was headed in bold letters. Marcus frowned. "What occupancy agreement?" He flipped to the next page, and his eyes stopped moving. The color drained slowly from his face. Renata reached for the papers. "Marcus, what is it?" He didn't answer. She took them from his hands. The opening paragraph read, "The legal owner of the property is Claire Bennett, pursuant to the final probate order and recorded deed executed following the estate of Harold Bennett." Renata stared at the words. "No, this—" She turned another page. "No, this can't be right." The attorney finally spoke. "There's no mistake." Marcus looked up, angry. "My wife inherited this house from her grandfather." "No," the attorney said evenly. "Your grandfather transferred ownership to Miss Claire Bennett. The deed was properly recorded months ago." "That's impossible." "It's fully documented." He opened his briefcase and produced certified copies. "Here's the recorded deed." One document landed on top of the envelope. "Here's the probate order." Another followed. "And here's the occupancy agreement signed after the transfer." Renata slowly recognized her grandfather's signature. So did Marcus. Neither could deny it. Renata's breathing turned uneven. "I remember." The memory surfaced fast. Months earlier, Grandpa had asked Claire to drive him to several appointments. Marcus had joked about it at the time. "There goes Grandpa's favorite." Claire had only smiled and said nothing. Another memory followed. Grandpa once asking everyone but Claire to leave the room during a family gathering. Renata had assumed it was just paperwork and never asked again. Now, every small moment suddenly clicked into place. Claire hadn't been hiding anything out of spite. She'd simply respected her grandfather's privacy. Marcus slammed the paper shut. "I don't care whose name is on a piece of paper. We live here. We've lived here for years. You can't just throw people out." The attorney nodded. "Ordinarily, occupancy agreements remain in effect until their stated expiration." Marcus smirked. "There you go." "But," the attorney continued, "this agreement carries several conditions." He turned to a highlighted section. "Condition 7. Renata read aloud, her lips trembling. "Occupancy shall immediately terminate in the event of verified harassment, intimidation, physical violence, or abusive conduct directed toward Claire Bennett." She stopped reading. Marcus snatched the papers back. "This doesn't prove anything." The attorney replied calmly. "It does when supported by evidence." Marcus crossed his arms. What evidence? The incident that occurred earlier today. Marcus laughed. You weren't there. No, but numerous witnesses were. The attorney handed him another folder, written statements gathered that afternoon from family members who'd reached out to Claire after learning she planned to enforce the agreement. Aunt Carol's, Uncle Robert's, 2 cousins, even Marcus's own younger brothers. Every statement described the same sequence. Claire had accidentally brushed against Marcus. Marcus had struck her. Renata demanded she apologize or leave. Not one account claimed Claire had acted aggressively. Marcus's smile vanished. This is unbelievable, he snapped, pulling out his phone. I'm calling everybody. He dialed Uncle Robert first. Tell this lawyer he's wrong. The line went dead. He tried another cousin. No answer. Then Aunt Carol, who picked up right away. You hit her, Marcus. I saw it. I'm not defending you. She hung up. One by one, every call ended the same way. Some didn't answer at all.